Welcome to Nightmares Incorporated, where our goal is to make your sleep anything but restful. So sit back, relax, and enjoy tonight's tale, entitled Shadows, written by William Chamberlain. I've been thinking about that night every day for the last 3 months, and I still don't know why the hell he did it. Tom said to me as he looked up from the empty coffee cup he had been staring at for the last 5 minutes. So what the hell do you expect from me? I'm sorry, Tom. I didn't mean to upset you. I'm just trying to wrap my mind around this, I said in a quiet, remorseful voice. I'd known Tom and his family for several years, and it broke my heart to see him like this. Tom was a big guy, broad shoulders, a beard that a Viking would be envious of, a man with an imposing frame. But now he looked shriveled, hollow-eyed, smaller somehow. I had invited Tom out for coffee this morning so we could talk about what had happened to his son. It had been a few months since his son had returned home from college for spring break and inexplicably taken his own life. I just had so many questions, but hadn't known how to approach the subject without being rude. It can be hard talking about this kind of thing. I knew that all too well, as I had lost a family member several years ago to the same thing. I've always felt like that event followed me around like a heavy dark cloud. I carried so much guilt that I was never really sure was mine to bear. I always felt like I should have called him, and maybe I could have said something to him to prevent it. But I had been a teenager at the time, and I hadn't, and then he was gone. To this day, I wonder if I could have changed that. If maybe a friendly phone call and a few words of encouragement at the right time could have stopped an event that had left a permanent scar upon my family. And I may have been projecting my own unanswered questions upon the tragedy that Tom had recently experienced. Again, I apologized to Tom. I'm sorry, Tom, I just don't understand why. Did he seem depressed? Did he give any indication that there was something he was struggling with? He seemed okay when I saw him. Was there anything out of place? Shit, Charlie. Don't you think I ask myself those questions every day? But there was nothing I noticed. Nothing I saw. And that's what fucking haunts me. I should have seen something, right? Should have noticed something. I was his father. Shouldn't I have just known that something was wrong? I watched as he fought back the tears. Want me to grab you another coffee? I asked, figuring that would give him a moment to collect himself. In truth, I was having a crisis of conscience. I could tell that Tom was not ready to talk about this, and felt like maybe I was pushing him out of my own need for understanding. But there was something about what had happened to Todd that seemed off to me. You see, I had known that Tom's wife, Sheila, had had a priest over to their house twice. Once before Todd died and once after. Tom's family wasn't particularly religious, so this struck me as odd. I had never been much of a religious person myself, but ever since I had joined the program, I had developed an interest in the spiritual world, and I wondered if the aforementioned visits from the priest were connected to what happened to Todd. Yeah, I could use another cup, he said. As I stood up to fetch our coffee, I noticed a lady sitting in a booth opposite us, giving me a look that suggested she had been eavesdropping on our conversation, and didn't particularly approve of me questioning the grieving father. I gave her a smile that she didn't return, and made my way to the counter. I ordered a caramel frap for me and a black coffee for Tom. Tom and I have worked together at the coal mines for years now. We used to carpool back in the day, forming a friendship that can only be born out of spending hours on the road with only each other for company. Then I had gotten a promotion to dispatcher, so I had to be at work earlier, and the misadventures of Tom and Chuck had come to an end. He had been proud of me, of course, but also had given me a metric ton of shit for taking that position out of friendly obligation. Rubbing shoulders with the chuckle fucks in the glass house now. I'm sure in a month you'll need an extra wide door for the ego inflation. And think you know what's going on in the pit better than the people that are out there doing all the real work, he had said to me at the time. Oh yeah? I replied. Well, I hope you like running that shovel, 'cause you're gonna be operating that thing digging up the earth until the end of time. You wouldn't dare, he had said with a laugh. And you will learn to respect my authority, I had responded in my best Eric Cartman voice. Tom just laughed at me and reminded me to make sure I had my chapstick and KY jelly for my first day with the big bosses. It was a good memory, but of course that was then and this is now. Things are different now. There is a darkness to this situation I can't figure out. I've always been sensitive to this kind of thing, and ever since I had started 12 Steps, I had really felt I was getting in tune with the spiritual world. That boy was full of life. He had a bright future. I may not have known everything that was going on behind the scenes, but it sure as hell didn't seem like he was a young man about to give up on life. The young lady at the counter brought me our coffee, and I headed back to the booth. Thank you, Tom said as I handed him his coffee. Then he gave my own drink the stink eye. Are you ever gonna start drinking grown-up coffee? Grown-up coffee is boring, I replied, glad to see a little of the old him poking out through the grief. And paying $7 for a cup of sugar and milk is fucking stupid. I gave a genuine laugh, and then we lapsed into a silence that was a little more comfortable than the previous one. I haven't told anyone the full story of what happened that night, Tom said after a few moments, surprising me a little. Obviously, my wife knows parts of it, but I was the first one back at the house that night, he said in a low voice. I noticed he was staring off into space, looking right past me. His eyes were sad, but also looking as if he was frightened by something. I twisted in my seat and looked to see what he was looking at, but there was nothing, just the brick wall of the coffee shop. I turned and looked back at Tom. Tom, are you okay? I'm pretty fucking far from okay, Chuck. But you want to hear what happened, and maybe I need to tell. It's just hard. I can't shake the images from that night. I'm sorry, Tom. We can talk about this some other time. I shouldn't be asking all these questions anyway. I'm not sure why I was backpedaling all of a sudden. Maybe I had realized that I was making Tom's situation more about me than him. No, Charlie, Tom responded. You got questions, and so do I. And maybe I need to share this with someone. Hell, that priest tried to get me to share with him, but I couldn't talk to him about this. He might fancy himself as a man of God, but he was just a stranger to me. Why was a priest there? I asked. He came over to the house to pray over it. It was my wife's idea. She kept going on about a darkness she had been feeling, whatever the fuck that means. I don't believe in that shit, especially not now, but I allowed it to keep her happy. She's been through enough, so if fairy tales about a loving creator that allows childhood leukemia helps her cope with things, then so be it, he continued, with a bit of anger in his voice. You decided on your higher power yet, by the way? Tom was referring to the program and my indecision on which higher power I wanted, as I hadn't made up my mind since I joined 6 months ago. In my defense, they weren't very specific on what a higher power was supposed to be. They just told me to pick something that was greater than myself. But hell, Super Mario was greater than me, so did that count? Not yet, I said. Well, Tom grunted. Pick a good one. I think Sheila's must have stopped to pick up a peanut on the night we really could have used him. It started out as just a normal day. We were off that day. I helped Julie get out the door for school, and Todd was goofing around like normal. I didn't notice anything strange about him. Not then, not the day before, or the day before that. He was just Todd. Boy was cracking jokes, always trying to make everyone happy. Always, Tom droned off, and then he zoned out again, like he was talking to someone behind me. I remember driving towards the house that night. I wasn't even gone that long. I wonder if he had been planning this for a while, Tom said. Then he looked right at me. All the lights were out when I pulled up in the driveway. I noticed the whole house was black. No glow from electronics or the bedroom lights. Usually Julie leaves her TV on, so there's almost always a glowing light coming from her window, Tom said with a small smile. I used to always tell her to turn the damn TV off when you're not in your room. Doesn't bother me anymore, though, Tom said in almost a whisper. At first, I just figured it was a power outage, but there was also this feeling, Tom continued. This heavy feeling, like when you know something just isn't right. I got out of my truck, walked up the sidewalk, and stepped into the house. All the appliances were shut off. There was no humming coming from the kitchen. It's strange the things you notice when all your senses are on edge. Time almost seemed to stand still. Then one of my dogs came around the corner, and when she got closer to me, she dropped something on the floor. I picked it up. It was something wet, so I dropped it quickly. Figured the damn dog must have been digging around in the trash again, Tom said as he began staring off into space once more. It wasn't trash, though, Tom whispered. It was part of my son. Of course, I didn't know that in that moment. I just left the living room and headed to the breaker box, seeing if it had tripped. And that's when I saw that it had been shot with what appeared to be my shotgun. I went on high alert then, my heart hammering in my chest as I ran to check on the kids. Julie wasn't home, thankfully, but I noticed down the hall that Todd's door was open, which made the alarm bells going off in my head get louder, as he usually keeps his door closed when he isn't home. He had told me earlier that he was going out to catch up with some friends who had stayed local, so he shouldn't have been home, and that door should have been shut. I rushed to his room, and when I stepped through the door, I could see him with the shotgun on his lap, and he was laid back on the bed. I called 911. I called my wife. I held his lifeless body until the paramedics arrived. I couldn't stop it. Tom repeated this last line a few times, still looking past me as if he was talking to someone else. I tried to bring him back by asking, was there a note? Any indication as to why? There was a note, but it didn't offer much. It just said, it comes with the light. What does that mean? Was he on anything? I don't know what it means, and the toxicology report came back clean. I just... Tom droned off for a moment, then came back with a vengeance. I just don't want to talk about this shit anymore, Chuck. I'm sorry, Tom. We don't have to talk about it anymore. I'm just trying to make sense of it, I said. Tom laughed at that, a harsh bark that was utterly devoid of humor, and instantly made me realize how stupid what I had said was. Yeah? Well, if you figure it out, Chuck, you let me know. Look, I appreciate you checking on me and wanting to help, but what are you digging for, Charlie? People don't just wake up one day and decide to give up on life, Tom. Not without some reason, that's all. They do it all the time, Charlie, Tom replied. Don't you watch the fucking news? Todd was fine that morning, and he was fine when I left to go to that stupid charity function. When I came back, he was dead. If there's any goddamn sense to be made out of that, I'll be happy to fucking hear it. I'm sorry, I said again. I know you are, Charlie, he said, his tone softening a bit. But sometimes shit doesn't make sense, and life doesn't come with a satisfaction guarantee. Look, I gotta get going, he said and got up to leave. I got up as well and gave him a bear hug. I'm sorry, my friend, I said. Thanks, Chuck. Tom left first, And as I went to leave, I noticed the woman in the booth across from us was looking at me like I was the biggest asshole she had seen in quite some time. "What?" I asked her. She rolled her eyes and went back to scrolling through her phone. I got in my car and drove home with tears in my eyes. No one should ever have to go through something like that. No one should ever have to bury their kid. No one. I couldn't shake the extra details I now had floating in my head. I don't know why the situation kept eating at me the way it did. I kept going through our conversation while I was pulling into my garage. I just couldn't help the feeling like there was more to the story. I felt like there was something about what happened that night that Tom wasn't aware of. As I entered my house, I thought I saw something out of the corner of my eye. I flicked the lights on, but there was nothing there. I figured that my mind must be messing with me. Such a dark story Tom had told, and that type of darkness can mess with your head. And what the hell did "it comes with the light" mean? I sat down on the couch and flipped the television on. I couldn't really focus on the news story that was playing because I was feeling a little jittery from a little too much coffee. It was one of those Dateline murder stories. This one was about a used car salesman who had apparently brutally murdered his family. They were talking about how they couldn't find any possible motive or reason for the slayings. I figured the guy was probably just a sick freak who suddenly snapped. I mean, who would brutalize a couple of girls like that? Or maybe there was more to it. My gut didn't feel right about this story either. My cell phone went off and startled me out of my train of thought. I recognized the number. It was Tom's wife. "Hello," I answered.
"Hello, Charlie,"
Sheila said.
"I don't know what you said to Tom, but he is really upset."
"I'm sorry, Sheila. I was just trying to understand what happened to your son. I just feel there's something more to the story," I replied lamely.
"I wish I knew what was going on in Todd's mind, but I don't know either. I know you're Tom's friend, and you're trying to help, but digging for a deeper meaning isn't helping him. Just be his friend."
She snapped at me. "I understand, Sheila." I apologized. "I won't pry anymore," I told her.
"Thanks, Charlie,"
she said, and hung up. I hadn't meant to make it worse, but had to admit to myself that perhaps I had been insensitive. I texted an apology to Tom, but didn't get anything back right away. I figured I'd call him tomorrow and offer a fuller apology. For the time being, I was going to relax and then try to get some sleep. After a few more hours of puttering around, the jitters had worn off, so I went upstairs to lay down. I'd only closed my eyes for a moment when I felt like something was watching me. I sat up quickly and looked in the direction where I thought something was looking at me from, but of course nothing was there. My mind must be playing tricks on me, I rationalized. Right when I went to lay back down, from the corner of my eye, I saw a tall, shadowy figure standing in the corner of my room. This time I didn't move my head. I just kept looking up at the ceiling, but as God is my witness, I could see this thing. It looked like it had to be around 7 feet tall. It was darker than the darkness of my room that surrounded it. I couldn't see any details, just an outline. It looked like it had long arms and legs, but I couldn't get any other real features. My heart was pounding in my chest. If I could just get a better look at it. I turned my head just slightly, and it was gone. I turned the flashlight on to my phone and shone it over into the corner. There was nothing there. Nothing that could have been mistaken for what I had just seen. That night I slept with the light on. The next morning I called Tom, but no answer. He must be doing something with his family, I thought, trying to get used to their new normal. I wouldn't bother them. I honestly wouldn't blame him if he was a little angry with me. Meanwhile, I was trying to investigate what the hell could have caused that shadow I saw in the corner. Maybe it was the combination of coffee and Tom's story that had me so jacked up that I was seeing things. Just then, my phone went off. It was Tom. "Hey, what's up?" I said. "Sorry I missed your call. I slept in." "No worries. I was just checking in. I wanted to apologize for making you relive those details, my friend. I should have been less pushy," I told him. "Don't worry about it, Charlie. I know you meant well and you've always been too curious for your own good. Sheila and I were gonna go get lunch later if you want to join us." "Sure," I told him. "Sounds fun. You're buying, right?" "Sure, buddy." I hung up and went to turn to go into the kitchen, and there it was. A big black shape that was vaguely humanoid. I stepped right into it. I felt like the air was sucked right out of my lungs, and I suddenly couldn't move. My body went instantly cold. I opened my eyes, and I was still in my bed, with this shadowy thing looking down at me. It wasn't the next day. I hadn't spoken to Tom. I felt like my heart was slowing down, and I was getting colder, and this dark thing was still looking down at me, hovering about 7 inches from my face. It was the most terrifying thing I'd ever seen. It was like gazing into an abyss that actually does gaze back at you. I couldn't move, and I didn't know what to do. So I did the only thing I could think of. I had learned the Lord's Prayer in the program, so I started reciting it out loud. I stumbled during a couple of parts, but I got most of it right, I think. I don't remember at what point I closed my eyes, but when I opened them, the thing was gone and I could move again. I jumped out of bed like it had suddenly caught fire. "Thank you, Jesus! Holy shit, what the fuck was that?" I said to the empty room, thinking that the man from Galilee had just jumped to the front of the line as far as higher powers go. The bedroom light was off. I went to turn it on, but it wouldn't turn on. I flipped the switch an extra couple times to be sure, and then left my room. I turned on the hall light and ran downstairs to check the breaker. The whole time I was wondering if I was really awake. Every room I entered, I flipped the lights on. I got to the garage and checked the breaker and saw that nothing appeared to be wrong. So I carefully went back upstairs. I grabbed a stool from the hall closet and checked the light bulb in my room. The bulb was blown, which made me feel a bit better. Regardless of that, however, I decided to sleep downstairs in my living room after I changed the bulb. The next morning, I woke up to my phone ringing, and it was Tom. "Hey," I said to Tom, "how do I know it's really you I'm talking to and that I'm really awake?" I added. "I'm sorry, but what the fuck?" Tom replied. Tell me something I wouldn't think to say in a dream," I told him. "You kissed ass out at work to get where you got," he said. "The fuck I did," I replied. "What the hell is this about, Charlie?" Tom asked. I felt silly, but I told him anyway. I had this crazy-ass dream about a shadow figure staring down at me in bed, and I couldn't get up or wake up, and it was terrifying. And in my dream, I thought I had talked to you. "A shadow figure," Tom said. "That's odd." Then he lapsed into silence. "What's odd about it?" I asked. "Something Sheila said a while back. It's why she had the priest come over to the house on both occasions. She said that she was hearing some strange noises in our home, and from time to time that she would get really cold in certain spots of the house. She then told me some crazy story about this past summer when we were up in the mountains and stayed in a cabin up there during one of our annual hiking trips. The cabin was one of those that was set up where you all sleep in one big room. She told me that she had woke up in the middle of the night and she thought she saw Todd getting back into bed. The next morning after breakfast, Todd told her he had had a bad dream about some dark figure looking down at him and that he couldn't move. As Tom spoke those words, the hair on my arm stood up. I suddenly felt like I couldn't breathe again. almost as if I was going to have a full-blown panic attack. I heard, "Charlie, are you still there?" But it sounded muffled. I knew in my soul something else had happened to Todd. "I'm here," I answered, slowing my breathing. "Sheila told me that she's seen this thing too. She said that it was dark and seemed angry, and that's why she had the priest over, to perform a blessing or a cleansing or whatever the fuck they do. Once before Todd died and once after, so maybe the first time didn't take. However," he went on, "seeing shadowy figures during sleep paralysis isn't anything supernatural, Charlie. It was probably just a trick of the mind, in Todd's case and in yours." We engaged in some small talk afterwards, but I did it mostly out of politeness. The entire time, my mind was on what he had said about Todd. I didn't think it was a trick of the mind. It comes with the light, I thought. A shadow comes with the light. 15 minutes later, we got off the phone. I went upstairs to grab some clothes, and right when I turned the corner to go down the hallway, I saw something slip around my bedroom door. I ran into the room, and there was nothing. What in the hell is going on? I remembered that I had a picture of Jesus in my hallway that my sponsor had given me. I retrieved the picture and hung it up in the bedroom. I figured that Jesus had done so well the night before that I'd give him another crack at whatever this thing was. Seeing something from the corner of my eye as I was hanging the picture, I got freaked out, left the bedroom, shut the door, and went downstairs to put my shoes on and get the hell out of the house. I'd no sooner than finished tying my shoelaces when I heard something hit the floor, accompanied by the sound of breaking glass. I didn't go back upstairs. I knew what that sound was, and I got chills all over my body. There was something in my fucking house, and it sounded like Jesus needed some backup. Either that, or I was losing my damn mind. Going for a drive always makes me feel better, so I decided I would do that, and maybe realize that I was being stupid and imagining things. I'd just turn on my tunes and block out the world. Alan Parsons Project is the perfect band with the best mellow sound I was looking for to distract my mind. I am the eye in the sky looking at you. I can read your mind. I am the maker of rules. Trust me, the irony of the lyrics I was singing along with wasn't lost on me. I looked in my rearview mirror, and there it was. The goddamn thing was in my back seat. I blinked, and it was gone. I changed the station.
"Well, I tell you, brothers and sisters, we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against rulers of darkness of this world. You must confess Jesus as Lord and be saved."
Yeah, that wasn't making me feel any better, so I changed the station again.
"The Senator of Wyoming says investigators are still puzzled by the events that took place in the town of Grayton, Wyoming. That the National Guard has been called to help the search and rescue efforts. Some people from the neighboring towns have insinuated that the government was doing experiments in the area, and that's what led to the disappearances."
I shut the radio off. Had the whole goddamn world lost its mind in the last few months? Or had it always been like this, and I had just been too drunk to notice? Why was I seeing the same thing that Todd saw the summer before he died? I drove in silence, contemplating the situation. Was it possible that this thing was the angel of death? Maybe a demon of some kind? I'm not sure what it was, but while I was driving, I thought I saw it more and more. The idea that it was a hallucination was slowly getting chipped away. I saw it on the side of the road, in an alleyway I passed, and peeking at me from behind a tree. I drove for hours in silence. I was starting to feel like it was quite possible that I was going insane. I stopped at a gas station to fill up, and Tom called me again. "Hey, you doing okay?" he asked. "I didn't know if I freaked you out after you told me about your dream." "Yeah, I'm okay. I am kind of wondering why you didn't tell me any of that stuff at the coffee shop," I asked him. "Hell, I had forgotten all about it until you mentioned your nightmare. I'm not into that spiritual spooky shit," he replied. Well, he might not believe in that spiritual spooky shit, but I sure as hell did, I thought to myself. "Wait," he continued. "Do you think the thing my wife claims she saw and what you dreamed of are the same thing? Charlie, are you alright, man? 'Cause that sounds kinda crazy." "I don't know what I'm saying. All I know is that I've been seeing it since we had coffee." "Wait a minute. Are you saying you've been seeing a shadow person while you're awake?" "I know it sounds crazy, but at first I only saw it out of the corner of my eye, and when I would try to get a better look, it would be gone. Now I keep seeing the damn thing in my house, and even out when I'm driving. I don't even want to go home now." The phone was silent for a second. "Are you still there, Tom?" "Yeah, I am, Charlie. Where are you now?" Tom asked. "I just got done filling up," I told him. "Okay, well, why don't you just come stay with us tonight?" "I don't want to intrude with everything you both have going on, Tom. I'll be fine. I just have to figure out my next move. Maybe I should call that pastor you both used to cleanse your house. Or maybe I should go buy some sage and do a smudge or something. I think that stuff is supposed to work too." And, I added in my own mind, Jesus did sound like he could use a tag team partner. "Okay, Charlie. Hold on, let me get his number from Sheila." I jumped in my car and pulled out to head to the store to get some sage. I don't know why I didn't think of this sooner. I can protect myself until the priest comes by to my house and blesses it or cleanses it or does whatever he needs to do. Tom came back on the phone. "Do you have a pen, Charlie?" "Yes, I do. But when I reached down to grab my pen, I saw that thing in my rearview mirror. Its hands gripping the headrests of both front seats, looking as if it was poised to pounce, and I jumped in shocked surprise. I never saw the semi-truck. I just heard the horn. Then I could hear Tom asking over and over again if I was all right, and what was that sound. There was a cacophony of noise then. Bending metal, breaking glass, the loud horn of a truck. I came to lying on the street, and I could see it looking down at me. It was about 7 feet high, darker than the color black. It looked right at me. I wasn't sure if it had eyes, as the socket seemed really sunken in, and when it moved it looked like static, as if it was popping in and out of focus. It continued to stare down at me for a few more moments, and then it just faded away. Oddly, it didn't seem as scary now. I sat up and saw that my car was all over the road, just a mess of twisted metal and broken glass. The semi had run off the road and was in a jackknifed position. I didn't know how the hell I had survived. Must have been my guardian angel. I went to get up and go pick up my phone, but I must have broken my leg because it was hard to move. I felt like I was walking in mud or moving in slow motion. Again, I saw that shadow being out of the corner of my eye. But when I turned my head to look at it straight on, the thing didn't disappear this time. I then noticed several shadows zipping from one place to another. They were all popping in and out of focus. There were other beings that seemed to be made out of light that I could see but couldn't focus on as well. It was almost like they were playing a game with each other. I counted about 15 to 20 shadows, going from here and there, going into buildings and popping into cars. The man driving the semi finally ran up with his phone to his ear. Thank God he's already calling for help. I'd been so distracted by all the shadows, I forgot to grab my phone. Then I caught what the driver of the truck was saying. Something that sounded like, "Yeah, I'm sure he's dead." At least that's what I thought he said. I thought he was talking about someone else, till I finally reached into the car to grab my phone and came face to face with myself. Or rather, what was left of myself. "Yeah, officer, I think he's gone. God damn it, he swerved out right in front of me." I felt like I was gonna have a panic attack, but there was nothing. I wanted to puke, but again, there was nothing. I couldn't believe that my life had ended like this. "You gotta be fucking kidding me!" I screamed. The truck driver froze for a moment, then looked around as if startled. "Yeah, sorry, officer. I thought I heard someone else in the car." 2 police cars and an ambulance showed up. The truck driver was badly shaken. I was just standing by what was left of the front of my car while the EMTs were trying to get my body out of the wreckage. "We're gonna have to cut this car up to get him out of there. What a fucking mess." I noticed that the truck driver kept looking over at me. The officer asked him if he was doing all right. "Yes, sir. Just for a moment, I thought I saw something over there," the truck driver told the police officer. "We better have you checked out just to be safe," the officer said. Holy shit, he can see me, I thought to myself. He must be gifted or something. I need to follow this guy. Maybe I can talk to him, ask for his help, and then he can say goodbye to all my friends and family for me. I was still having a hard time moving. I didn't understand why I was moving so slowly. They had already loaded my body into the ambulance, and I hadn't even gotten to the other side of the road where the truck driver was. The ambulance drove away with no siren. The truck driver was being taken away, and I was still standing in the middle of the street. Finally, my car was being loaded up. I just stood there in disbelief. I wanted to cry. I wanted to scream. I couldn't fucking believe that the one person who could see me was currently being driven away. I looked around wildly, looking at the shadows that were still cavorting around, seeing if maybe one of them could help me. Then I noticed that they all suddenly moved as one, streaming in one direction like excited children. I followed them with my gaze and saw a tall, angelic-looking being slowly walking towards me. Although angelic didn't seem exactly right. The being had an almost faded look to them, the colors of the robe they wore appearing tarnished, almost dingy. They stood around what I estimated to be 9 or 10 feet tall, black wings like that of a raven spread out behind them, long arms with spider-like fingers stretching past their knees. I was afraid momentarily, but then remembered reading somewhere that angels did appear frightening to humans in the Bible. It was just Hallmark that had turned them into the rosy-cheeked cherubs for marketing purposes or something. The other shadows fell in line behind this black-robed being, crawling after it like obedient pets. It came to a stop when it reached me, and I could see the being was smiling. Or at least it appeared to be. Its facial features didn't quite line up, and I couldn't tell whether it was male or female. There also appeared to be a shimmer like a heat haze surrounding the being, as if the form I was looking at was a mirage. "You can see me?" I asked the angelic being. "Yes, my new friend, I can see you," it responded. Its voice was cultured, kind, but I felt like I could detect laughter or mockery just underneath. "Did you want to follow that man they took away?" the being asked, making me instantly forget any misgivings I had. Yes, I replied. That man heard me. He saw me. Then he must be gifted, the angel replied. Perhaps he can help you say your farewells, so you may shed your humanity and go to the home that awaits you. That's what I thought, I said, relief flowing through me. You'll catch him faster if you focus on his face, the stranger said to me. I can teach you how if you'd like. Yes, I exclaimed. Please. Of course, my new friend, the being said kindly. But remember, the living are not used to communicating with the dead, so you must be relentless. Follow that man wherever he goes. Do not relent under any circumstances until he acknowledges your presence and speaks with you. I can teach you how. I can teach you how to move with but a thought, so he can never get too far from you, and how to manifest your emotions into actions that can be felt in the realm of the living. I laughed out loud. I was so relieved. A real guardian angel had come to help me. And, my angel continued, if that man does not prove to be helpful, there's many other things we can try. You can call out to me, and I will aid you. Oh, thank you, I said. Call out to you? How? What's your name? You can call me Basil, the angel replied. That's not quite right, but I'll answer to it, and I will be able to find you wherever you are. We are linked for the time that you are here. Indescribable relief filled me. It felt so good to know that I wasn't alone, that I had an angel here to help me. And in the event that that man does not help you, there are others, it continued. And if they aren't helpful, then maybe you are one of the special souls. Special souls? I asked. Yes, Basil replied. A soul that is not meant to go home yet, but rather to help other souls free themselves from their mortal prisons. Like my friends here. And he gestured to the shadows that were all around us. It is special work, my friend, Basil said. You could almost call it God's work. I smiled at that thought, thinking of Tom and Sheila and how sad they were. How I could maybe help reunite them with their son. I could do God's work. I could finally do some real good. Now, we should get to work, my friend, my angel said with another crooked smile. After all, we don't want to keep that man waiting, do we? So we began our work. I learned fast. Basil was awfully proud of me. But in the end, the man didn't turn out to be any help. He had died of a heart attack. I think I might have frightened him a little too much. The other 4 after him weren't useful either, and that's when I realized that maybe I was indeed one of these special souls Basil had talked about. That perhaps it was my mission to help free other spirits from their mortal shackles. So if you ever see something from the corner of your eye, don't be afraid. It might just be me or one of my friends. And we're only there to set you free. Thank you for joining us here at Nightmares Incorporated. And a special thanks to William Chamberlain for sharing his nightmare with us. And we hope to see you all again next week when we bring you another original story. Until then, sweet dreams.